Welcome to Episode 74, Planning, Part 2. In this session, we turn from planning intent to planning structure, how to present complex material clearly so that people can read, understand, and use it. Structure is what separates a working plan from a dense report. Clarity does not come from more words, but from deliberate organization, a consistent layout, logical flow, and visible connections between purpose, controls, and evidence. A well-structured plan saves time for authors, reviewers, and operators alike. It becomes a single source of truth where every element has a place and nothing hides in chaos. Structure is not decoration. It is discipline on paper. The backbone of any structured plan is its narrative sections: context, intent, and implementation. The context explains why the plan exists and what environment it governs. Intent states the objectives, risk posture, and expected outcomes. Implementation details how the organization will achieve those objectives in practice. For instance, a section describing access control might open with a brief risk context, followed by policy intent, and conclude with how badges and monitoring enforce that policy. This narrative flow moves from why to how, guiding readers through reasoning rather than raw data. Organized storytelling turns documentation into shared understanding. Parameter tables add precision by translating choices into specific, traceable values. Parameters define how a control operates: password length, log retention, timeout intervals, or encryption strength. Tables let readers see these decisions quickly without searching paragraphs. For example, a table might list control, session timeout, parameter, 15 minutes, rationale, limits exposure of unattended terminals. Parameter tables also reveal consistency across systems. Discrepancies stand out immediately. They make auditing efficient because both value and justification sit side by side. A plan that hides parameters in prose invites confusion. Tabular clarity ensures every control can be implemented exactly as written. Control mapping with rational notes bridges policy requirements to real-world implementation. Each control identifier, whether from NIST, ISO, or internal standards, should point to where it is addressed, who owns it, and why the chosen approach fits. Rational notes explain deviations, inheritance, or risk-based tailoring. For example, a mapping might show that access control, AC2, is met through a specific identity management platform, with a note explaining inherited multi-factor authentication from a cloud provider. This transparency prevents rote compliance. Mapping and rational together show thoughtfulness, proof that controls were selected deliberately, not blindly copied from templates. Plans must also list roles, responsibilities, and contact directories so that readers know who to reach for each function. A clear directory identifies system owners, security officers, risk managers, and operational leads, with both primary and alternate contacts. Roles should match job titles found in organizational charts to avoid confusion. For instance, if a vulnerability arises, the plan should tell readers exactly who coordinates patch approval. Keeping contact directories current transforms the plan from static reference into a working coordination tool. When emergencies occur, minutes matter, and knowing the right name without guesswork can save hours of delay. Frequencies, timers, and event triggers describe how often activities occur and what starts them. These entries transform recurring requirements into predictable schedules. For example, access reviews quarterly, or incident response tabletop exercises annually. Event triggers specify when updates happen outside the schedule, such as after new deployments or significant incidents. Recording both frequencies and triggers prevents drift by giving teams measurable checkpoints. These details also aid assessors who must verify the controls operate continuously, not occasionally. When time-based activities are explicit, plans become self-regulating systems instead of reminders that depend on memory. Diagrams described in plain language combine visualization with accessibility. Not every reader interprets technical schematics the same way, so each diagram should include a text summary explaining what it shows: systems, data flows, or security zones, and what message it conveys. For instance, a network diagram might include a paragraph describing connections between web servers, databases, and monitoring points. Plain language captions make complex visuals usable by both engineers and non-technical stakeholders. They also ensure that information remains accessible when diagrams are printed, translated, or read with assistive tools. Clarity in visuals multiplies understanding. Pictures and words must tell the same story. Versioning, change history, and edit controls keep planning documents trustworthy over time. Each version should include a number, date, author, and summary of changes since the last edition. A controlled edit process, whether through document management software or version logs, prevents confusion over which copy is official. For example, a version header might read, v3.2, updated to reflect encryption algorithm change, approved 14 June. Change history provides both transparency and accountability. It allows reviewers to track evolution and understand context behind decisions. Version control makes the plan a living record, not an ever-changing draft. Linked procedures, playbooks, and runbooks connect strategy to execution. Plans describe intent. Procedures explain how that intent becomes daily practice. Linking them avoids redundancy while maintaining unity. A security plan might reference a separate incident response playbook or backup restoration checklist rather than rewriting them. Each link should specify the procedure's title, owner, and storage location. These connections let teams pivot quickly from policy to action when time is limited. The goal is coherence. One plan, many supporting tools, all synchronized through deliberate cross-references that ensure no part operates in isolation. Cross-links to evidence repositories ensure traceability between written promises and demonstrated proof. Plans should specify where logs, tickets, test results, and reports reside, whether in a compliance portal, document library, or service management system. Cross-referencing these repositories allows auditors to verify claims without hunting for artifacts. For example, a section on vulnerability management might reference Evidence Folder, VM 2025 Q1, containing scans and remediation reports. This linkage shows that evidence collection is organized and continuous. Plans that point directly to proof give credibility to every statement inside them, closing the loop between assurance design and assurance demonstration. Alignment with policies and standards keeps every plan consistent with organizational direction. Each section should cite applicable corporate policies, federal requirements, or industry frameworks. Doing so prevents contradictions and shows traceability from governance to implementation. For instance, a control referencing data retention must align with the organization's records management policy and any regulatory mandates. This alignment also simplifies audits, since assessors can follow a single thread from rule to evidence. Alignment is not about citing documents for formality. It is about demonstrating that the plan fits harmoniously within the broader governance ecosystem. Accessibility, language, and readability determine whether people will actually use the plan. The best plans read like guides, not legal contracts. Sentences should be clear, paragraphs focused, and jargon limited. Acronyms require explanation on first use, and formatting should aid scanning with headers and whitespace. Accessibility also means designing for varied audiences, including translation or assistive technologies when needed. A readable plan invites engagement. An unreadable one ensures neglect. Making clarity a design goal shows respect for every user and reinforces the principle that communication is part of security, not separate from it. Internal reviews, sign-offs, and distribution lists preserve accountability for content accuracy. Review cycles define who checks technical correctness, compliance alignment, and policy consistency. Sign-offs capture final agreement, while distribution lists record who receives the plan once approved. Tracking distribution ensures everyone uses the same version. For example, a digital copy may circulate to operational leads, while a printed version resides in the emergency binder. This control eliminates confusion during audits or incidents. Reviews and distribution are the plan's social contract, confirmation that its information has been validated, endorsed, and shared deliberately, not by accident. In closing, consistent, maintainable, and auditable plans define operational maturity. Structure gives each section purpose. Tables make details traceable, and linked evidence connects commitments to outcomes. A plan that is easy to read and verify remains useful long after its creation. When every revision, reference, and repository aligns under one controlled format, the organization can prove not only that it plans effectively, but that it manages planning as a repeatable discipline. Structured documentation becomes its own control clear, enough to follow, strong enough to trust, and flexible enough to endure. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.